Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. If you haven't been with us before, I'm Kendall Fisher, your host and head of video at NetSuite. And today is extra exciting because we will be joined by NetSuite founder and executive vice president, Evan Goldberg, to discuss his own experience and advice on navigating a changing business environment. Now, we know running a business can be tough even during the best of times, but faced with an economic slowdown, those challenges not only become more difficult to navigate, they also tend to multiply. Buyers, suppliers, partners, and customers all feel the squeeze, which can impact your bottom line. However, leveraging these periods of time for deep introspection can pay dividends in the long term. So Evan is going to discuss just that. Ways to really look under the hood of your business to identify areas of improvement, take advantage of current opportunities, and emerge successful. He'll cover his own experience with changing economies, tumultuous economies, what he got right, what he'd do differently, and his advice on steps all of you can take that might help too. Now, we'll definitely cover as much as we possibly can during our chat, but we'll also open it up to you for a live Q&A with Evan at the end of today's event. So be sure to use the comments to ask Evan any questions you may have, and we'll get to as many as we possibly can, like I said, at the end of the hour. And if you don't have any questions, that's totally fine too. Just give us a shout out in the comments. We know you're joining us from all over the place, so tell us where you're tuning in from, and we'll make sure to call out to some of you during our event. I guess I'll kick things off with that. I'm currently in Santa Monica, California, so shout out to all of my SoCal natives. And with that, please join me in welcoming our founder and executive vice president, Evan Goldberg. Hi, Evan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey there.
So I started off asking our audience where they're tuning in from, and it only makes sense to kick this off by asking you where you're currently joining us from, Evan.
Yeah, I'm here in Northern California on the Bay Area, and it's slowly drying out.
I was going to ask. Slowly drying up. That's good to hear. That is good to hear. Well, we are going to discuss how NetSuite helps businesses navigating changing times. But before we do, it's really important to highlight that you have actually overcome these challenges yourself as a business founder and leader through the dot-com crash, the 2008 financial crisis, the pandemic, and anything in between. So as a founder, what is top of mind in navigating these situations?
Yeah, well, great question. I'm excited to talk about this topic. As you said, I am a veteran of two of these sort of slowdowns, economic turmoil. There's a lot of things when you're running a business, that are fundamental, but sometimes get shunted to the side. Things like, are we lowering our costs as much as possible? Have we looked at everything and seeing how we can do it more efficiently? Have we really investigated, where our biggest success lies and where we've been able to, upsell our customers? These are kinds of questions that you should always be asking. But when times are good, you sometimes can get away without asking them because it's just easy to a business is just kind of, coming to your door and you're just taking orders. So in both of my previous experiences of going through these times, we used it as an opportunity to sort of, you might say, sharpen our pencil on those business fundamentals. And, there's really, the fundamental things you're doing as a business are pretty straightforward, even though your business is unique and the types of products or services you're providing are unique, no doubt. But, you want to acquire and grow your customer base, and you obviously have to continue to create and deliver your products. You need to optimize cash flow and profitability, of course, and you need a great team, and you need to, be shepherding your great team through these times also. And it may mean in some cases you have to shrink your team. You need to do that effectively. It may mean that you're just sort of flattening, but you want to make sure that your employees are still super motivated, even though, there might be a lot of turmoil outside. So addressing these fundamentals and looking closely at where you can do better is something that you necessity is the mother of invention. And so that's what, we found ourselves doing in the past. And we made some great changes to how we did business that, really helped us not only survive the downturns, but ultimately coming out of them, with a lot of momentum and really thriving from those changes we made.
Can you actually speak to that? What were those changes? What did you get right in those times?
Yeah, and there's a lot of little things, and a lot of little things can add up to a lot, but probably the one that I'd single out most is that we just, before the financial crisis, if you look back, hindsight is 2020, we were not focusing enough on our existing customers, and not only how to help make them successful, because that's what you really want to do, but also, what are ways we can not only ensure that we retain them as customers, that we actually expand their use of our technology, because there were cases, especially in this kind of economic climate, where we felt that NetSuite provided some great capabilities, and we could get sort of a win-win situation with some of our existing customers by really focusing on what they were doing. When the business is coming in, you have more of a tendency to focus, what's just coming over the transom, and those existing and those new customers, and getting them to become part of the family. So I think that's the biggest thing we did, was that focus on our existing customers. They need help during this time, and you can often help them with your product or service potentially. And if done right, you can actually during those times, they can potentially expand their use of your product, and that can help mitigate, that you have less new business coming in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're hearing that a lot right now, especially I know in my conversations I've had with customers, with our customers, their biggest focus has been, how do we retain our current customers? How do we turn those customers into fans, into lifelong fans, so that when these things happen, they're still coming to us either to shop or for our service or what have you. So it's a really, really solid point.
Yeah. And just one more point on that. Sometimes you will need to lower your prices to maintain, if your customers are encountering economic difficulties or difficulties in their business, the most important thing is that you retain them, so that when times are good for them, then they can go back, expand their use more. So it's not always that you'll necessarily be able to expand use. You really have to go on a customer by customer basis and really understand the situations of your customers. And what's true in all of these these times of economic volatility is that some sectors continue to do well and some sectors don't. So having that visibility to be able to see which parts of your customer base are thriving still, which parts of your customer base are having difficulty, will give you a better, sort of playbook to see, where should I be pushing to get more from my existing customers? Where should I just be really helping them navigate themselves? Right. And so that they, we have them as customers when things get better in their industry or their region. Again, these are very sort of lumpy changes that happen. I mean, we saw this in COVID, for example. While some sectors were suffering badly, obviously restaurants, hospitality, et cetera, some sectors, software, especially that, and people making products for, that you can use at your home. Right. So not just technology, but any kind of products, those were thriving. So having a better understanding of your customer base, exactly who they are and how they're doing, is super, super helpful. Again, it's one of those things that once you do it out of necessity, you'll do it forever.
I was about to say.
Yeah, the focus we've had on really deeply understanding our customers and helping them navigate whatever they're going through is a discipline that we've maintained, and has paid off in dividends during times of plenty and scarcity.
Absolutely. Now, I know I can ask all day about what you got right, but I think it's also important to learn from the things that we would go back and do different. So what is some of that? What's like one area for you where in times of economic volatility, you maybe would have gone back and done something different?
Well, the first thing I'd say that I would have done different is I would have done some of these things when times were still good.
Yeah.
Because if you decide to do an initiative that's focusing on some fundamental part of your business, it's going to take time to get that thing going and to really see the success from it. And so if we had those things spun up, we had been doing better kind of, management of our existing customers earlier on, and we probably should have been. And as I said, it's proved to be very useful throughout the rest of our history as a company. That's probably the biggest thing that I wish we had been able to do differently with hindsight.
Yeah. And I mean, even talking about what we were just talking about with understanding your current customer, I mean, that's stuff that you can put into place now, understanding all of your customers and understanding where they all sit and how they would be impacted. That's something you can put in place far before anything goes on. It's something you should always understand. So we actually have a ton of comments coming in right now, Evan, and I want to definitely take a moment before I get into our next question to say hello to everybody who's joining us from all across the world. I thank you all for commenting. Please keep commenting. And remember, we are going to open things up to Evan at the end of our conversation for a live Q&A. But first and foremost, I'm going to get to as many of these as I can. We have Irina from snowy Denver. We have Bryce, who's shouting out from Los Angeles. We have Deshaun, who's from Irvine, California, some SoCal natives. We have Hampus, who's joining us from Spain. Love that. We have, Benjamin from Burlington, Massachusetts. We have Jeff V, who's also in the Bay Area. We have Yash, who's joining us from Dallas, Texas. Andres from Colombia. Chris from Dallas, Aubrey. Dallas, Aubrey. We have, who else is joining us? Joe, who's joining us from Nashville and is joining the BDR program in March. Congratulations to you, Joe. We're excited to have you. We have Felipe, who's joining us from Guadalupe, and Daryl from Canada. Thank you all so much for joining us. Like I said, keep shouting out. We will shout out to as many of you as we possibly can. And with that, Evan, I want to dive a bit into the fact that many businesses might be experiencing a volatile economic climate really for the first time right now. You've kind of touched on this a bit in answering our first question, but just to repeat it, what advice do you have for them?
Yeah. Well, again, every business is different. Every industry is different. We definitely get some visibility into how companies are navigating whatever kind of external forces they're encountering. Again, a lot of my comments will be based on my experience running my own businesses and businesses that I've been involved with as a board member, as an advisor, friends' businesses. That's where you really get to see deeply what's going on inside businesses, because again, there's a lot of little things that you can do that can add up to a lot. And again, if you can do them in a sort of systematic way, do these things to, maybe you got to look at, if you're a product company, where your supplies are coming from, are you really getting the best deal you possibly could? This is, again, when times are good, you maybe your margins, have margins that you're satisfied with. Well, when you're not selling as much, you want your margins on each product you sell to be as large as possible. So you can look at a lot of things, externally, what are we paying for supplies or contractors, or what are internally, are we really being as efficient as we can be? And all these little things can potentially add up, and try to do them in a way that it will last, through times good and bad. And that, again, when I look at companies, and again, every company is different, and you might be a company at a very early stage where funding is incredibly important to you, and it's hard to get funding in these times. So you need to conserve, and that's, that may be different than a company that's already profitable and already has cash flow. May have, a longer runway to be able to survive this. So every circumstance is quite different, but certainly I've seen that the businesses that I've been involved with and businesses that we help with NetSuite are taking these times to look closely and do little things across, again, optimizing their profitability and cash, optimizing their, customer relationships and seeing where they can find more business within their customer base, or what area, what industries they sell to that may still be doing well, what regions they sell to that might be doing well. That's all about visibility. Right. And so the more visibility you have into everything that's going on inside your business in terms of your costs of creating and delivering your products or services, outside your business, what types of customers, what types of industries, regions, et cetera, you might want to focus on. All that's about visibility to gain the insights that will help you navigate these times.
So the $1 million question, how does NetSuite help with all of this? How does NetSuite really support businesses in navigating these changes, looking under the hood during this time, really identifying exactly what you just said, understanding your customer better, providing enhanced support, opportunities for efficiency and so forth. Yeah. What role does NetSuite play?
Yeah, and there's a couple different roles. There's the very basic and practical role that a lot of times people during the good times have bought a lot of software. They've gotten a hammer for every possible type of nail. NetSuite has very broad capabilities. And so, when you adopt those capabilities in NetSuite, perhaps instead of or to replace a relatively expensive software system that you may have found is not delivering the value that you expected, you can save a bunch of money. Right. And its ancillary benefit of that is you get more out of NetSuite when you use more of the system. Right. Because the connections between the different parts are what really sort of is this special sauce about NetSuite, that everything's connected and everybody's working off the same playbook, that sort of thing. So that's sort of a practical way that NetSuite can help with just the bottom line. But again, I think it comes back to the things that I talked about earlier. And we kind of look, again, when we look at designing NetSuite, we design for these fundamental value streams of acquiring and growing your customers, creating and delivers products or services, hiring and empowering your employees, and optimizing cash and profitability. And all those areas are things that you can obviously optimize. And in all those areas, we try to focus on delivering great insight. And that's critical. You just have to, in order to make improvements, you have to know what's going on. Control, things like expense controls, are very important during these times, and NetSuite can very much help there. Agility. You're going to have to change some things. You're going to start tracking new things that if you have a new idea about how you can run more efficiently, you may need to track new things. NetSuite has the agility to sort of transform as you transform. Of course, productivity. And again, when everyone's using the same system, it's easy to train people. Our system is made to be extremely easy to use. And then in terms of productivity, just again, understanding how well everybody on your team is doing, how well the different channels are doing. That's all ways that you can improve your productivity. And then finally, collaboration. It's more important than ever when you're trying to get the most out of your team, that they're working together. NetSuite provides sort of this single playbook, this single system where there's a lot of visibility, there's a lot of communication, and that's incredibly important during this time. So those, all the areas that we work on, we think about how they can make your business run better. And now's the time to make your business run the best it possibly can be the finely honed machine that will help you, survive and then thrive into the future.
Right. Take advantage of those opportunities to come. I hear for our existing customers looking at opportunities to create greater efficiency and more automation by leveraging more of the suite makes total sense to me. I guess for a prospect who's tuning in right now, why is NetSuite uniquely positioned to help businesses during that time, especially over like competitors? If they're looking into someone else right now, why us?
Yeah, well, we do have certainly sort of the broadest footprint. So it allows you at, very sort of what we think is a reasonable cost to start tracking and automating things that maybe you didn't before when you were working with a small business accounting system or something that really wasn't designed for the type of company that you've become. And so, again, when you're growing, it becomes very obvious that you need more. You need to be able to support more users, and you need to be able to support more sophistication. When you're battening down the hatches, you want an efficient system that everyone can learn easily, that can do all these things that we said. And that's really the fundamental advantage of NetSuite, is that with one system you can accomplish so much that you need to do in improving your business across all these different areas.
Right. So I guess that kind of hits on when we talk about this being an opportunistic time for businesses. Is it more than just setting your business up for success or to emerge successful? What else do we mean by this being an opportunistic time? And then to add to that, how does NetSuite enable that?
Yeah. Well, we always see great companies being created during these times, and sort of like after the wildfire, 1,000 flowers bloom. And you see that in the California landscape. Unfortunately, you see it all too often. A few years later, it's amazing what the new landscape looks like. And so that's driven by necessity. In some cases, people may have been laid off from their job, or people may their previous business, they couldn't get any more funding for it through no fault of their own. So they're like, well, I have this other idea, and I'm going to start on a shoestring budget, and I'm going to develop this idea. And then lo and behold, when things get better, they get funding and their business explodes. So it is an opportunistic time. And I think that, again, you're going to be searching for business in every corner, when times are tough. So you're going to have to be opportunistic. But one thing I would caution everybody, and again, this is from my personal experience with my company and other companies that I've been closely involved with, is that you need to be careful not to lose your focus. And it's easy to get distracted during these times because you just want to find business anywhere. And I totally understand that. You obviously need to survive, and you want to keep all your employees and all those, and that's important. And I don't want to minimize the importance of being opportunistic. But fundamentally, when you look at the history of businesses that I've been involved with and businesses that I see, their ability to keep that focus on that North Star, why they originally started their business, the vision that they had, why they're in it in the first place, that becomes the hardest during these times. And so that's what I would say, that businesses, yes, be opportunistic, but do keep your sort of eyes on the prize, and may have to make some tough decisions, but again, that focus will pay off in the long time, continuing to make forward progress, marching towards that goal that you've always had.
Well, and I guess that comes back to, it's more than just following your mission, right? It's making data-backed decisions. It's obviously there's some gut involved in there too, but it's having the right, as we've been talking about, being able to look under the hood, being able to be analytical about your business. I guess the best way to kind of provide an example of that is ourselves. I mean, NetSuite is our own best customer. So how are we doing that? How are we utilizing NetSuite to do that?
Yeah. And, when we went through the financial crisis, and that's the time that I said we really expanded and improved our interaction and tracking and deeply understanding our customers. I mean, that was all done through NetSuite and continues to be done through NetSuite. So we expanded our use of NetSuite during that time. We started tracking different metrics. We started looking more closely at usage, for example, how people were using our products. That's incredibly important to understand how your customers are using your product. So we've used NetSuite to track those kinds of metrics, continue to track sentiment among our customers, like how are they feeling about their business, how are they feeling about NetSuite, et cetera. We built a lot of that into NetSuite, and because NetSuite's very flexible, we were able to do that. And many of those systems that we put in place, 13 years ago, or more, 14, we still use today. So again, it's another example of how you can make progress during these times that can really last. And your systems are a very important part of it. As you said, having the data is the best way to make decisions. And you can obviously intuition, your experience is an important part, but why make decisions in a vacuum when you don't have to?
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, I have a couple questions to wrap up here. Before I do, I just want to remind everyone who's tuning in that we will open it up to a live Q&A here in a few minutes. So please ask any questions that you may have of Evan, and we will get to as many as we possibly can. I know you all have been shouting out, so a few more here that came in. I am going to do my best to say this, but Obalaja from Nigeria, thank you so much for joining us. We have Bruce Dundor who says hello. Lucas from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Hi, Lucas. Corinne from Arkansas. Hi, Corinne. Thank you all so much for shouting out. And again, just keep those coming and keep your questions coming. And we will be opening it up here in just a few minutes. But before we get to the Q&A, Evan, I do want to end on a positive note. We've been talking about what it means to why now is an opportunistic time for businesses, and what they can be doing to, like we said, emerge stronger. But there's also industries that are going to be, there's going to be industries right now that are having great times of innovation, and there's certain areas. I guess I'm just curious to know what you're most excited about, or what you've been seeing. Any particular industry or area you're seeing or expecting some pretty great breakthroughs?
Yeah, well, there will be a ton of breakthroughs because necessity is the mother of invention. And it's not just that new companies will be created. Existing companies are going to have great ideas that were driven by the fact that they just had to think deeply about how they can be successful in tough times. Oh, what about if our product could do this? This would be super useful. Again, when times are good, you can kind of coast a little bit. Now is the time where you gotta be your best, and I think so. As a result, I think we see amazing innovation. Now is a time of great innovation in so many different industries. One industry that tends to be resilient to both the ups and the downs is healthcare, and particular for NetSuite, we're seeing some amazing new customers that are making incredible advances in healthcare that are helping save lives and improve people's access to healthcare, which is a huge problem all over the world, and definitely here in the United States. So, and again, one of the things that happens with healthcare is it does get stressed during these times because there's more disease, there's more everything that comes from economic volatility, there's more stress in the world. And so I think that we'll see over the coming years, just based on what we're seeing in our customer base, some incredible innovation in healthcare. It's an area that Oracle is really deeply interested in, that Larry personally is deeply interested in. Obviously, Oracle acquired Cerner, which is an important provider of health information all over the world. It's really actually the largest around the world. And that health information, we can make so much better use of it. And so on a big picture, sort of helping manage that information to benefit everybody's health can have just a huge impact, and something that I'm personally extremely excited about. I've been involved outside of Oracle in things involving healthcare and cancer, and there's incredible innovation happening there, both in the commercial world and in medical institutions, and philanthropic foundations are doing some great work. So it's an exciting time for that, which is not necessarily directly connected to the economic downturn, but it is one that I felt like it might be appropriate to shout out because it's so exciting.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That kind of patient first mentality is really driving that. I mean, it goes back to, like, to bring this full circle, it really goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of this, the customer first mentality that you enforce.
Yeah. And, I mean, for healthcare providers, I mean, obviously this is a time where people, they may not completely neglect their health, but they're going to pull back on maintenance of their health and things like that. So how can we lower the cost so that people don't do that? And you lower your costs. If you can lower your own costs, then you can pass that savings on, obviously, to the customer. And that's incredibly important now. Anything we can do in that industry to help improve access and make sure that people are taking care of themselves, even when the money is tight. I think that's super important.
Yeah, making it easier, not only cheaper, but
Yeah.
easier to take
cheaper and easier. Exactly.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we do have some questions coming in from the audience. Before I get to those, Evan, I want to make sure there's nothing else you want to touch on before I open the can of worms. No, but before we start bringing in those questions, anything else?
Well, I mean, again, I want to emphasize every company is different, and some guidelines that I've thrown out from what I've seen, but ultimately, you're the one. This is the time as an entrepreneur that you have to be as creative and as persistent as possible, because these cycles end, and you want to survive it and be in the best position. And you're the best person really to know how to do that.
Right. Agreed. All right. We have a question coming in from Ryan out of New York. Ryan asks, this is pertaining, I think, back to when we're talking about making decisions. As an entrepreneur, what is the balance between going with your gut and intuition versus information and data, just from your own experience, I suppose?
Yeah. Well, I mean, circumstances are different across different types of businesses and your personal level of experience. You have data yourself. I mean, you may not have it in your system, but your data from all your previous experiences and all, that's data. So I'm not saying that it has to be a chart, on a web page, for it to be data. But so I would say I kind of view that, me personally, I go with kind of a data first approach.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't trust my intuition enough, but and then supplement it with that common sense. And one of the most important things about data is that statistics definitely do lie. And whenever I look at data, I really try to look at the underpinnings of that data. Where did we get that data? How did we collect it? Who are we really sampling? A basic knowledge of statistics is very, very useful, I think, for everybody in business. Just understanding when something is anecdotal or something really is statistically valid. I think that's so, a little data can be a dangerous thing. So I would say that, intuition is important, especially to be able to spot, wait, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't pass the smell test for me.
Yeah. And
then, of course, data is, in my opinion, is necessary, but obviously not sufficient. And that's where we bring in our experience, our knowledge, and sure our intuition. But I'd say I go with a data first approach.
All right, we have another question here. This one's from Aaron out of San Francisco. Aaron says, NetSuite 2023 release 1 is almost here. Sneak peeks are here. How is NetSuite evolving to adapt to customer needs during this time of economic volatility?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're listening to our customers, and our customers want to be able to work more efficiently. So we're certainly working on how can we make it easier to use NetSuite so you don't spend as much time in the system. You spend only the time you need to. You get the information you need out easily and quickly, because you want to be spending the vast majority of your time building your business, improving your business, and stuff that has nothing to do with NetSuite. So that's one of the things that we want to do is you get in, you get out, you get what you need. And then, just continue to improve your visibility. Provide, we have, for example, the NetSuite Analytics Warehouse, which is getting big improvements in 23.1, is a product that allows you to look at historical data, get more insights into your data, but also connect that to other data you may have, data in your internal systems, data from other systems, pull it all together, and have it constantly sort of updated and be able to analyze it with incredible analytic tools. So that, again, I said I had data first approach. So that technology I find very exciting.
All right, I just have to shout out to Jeff really quick because I think you'll appreciate this. Jeff V says, the cellular distributor I ran during the dot-com crash came out swinging when we selected the then NetLedger to replace QuickBooks. He says, we would not have been able to grow in that ensuing recovery without NetSuite. So had to share that.
That's great. It's good. Anytime you mention NetLedger, you're going deep. It's a deep cut.
Yeah. We do have a question from Fred out of Georgia. Fred says, one of my core goals out of the pandemic was to keep my people around. Any advice on how to make sure you are able to retain your talent during this time?
Yeah. Well, obviously, any efficiencies you can find in your operations that don't involve people are going to allow you to save more money to maintain your employees. Obviously, if you can make each employee, if they can impact the organization more, impact revenue more. So focus on make sure that each employee you're getting the most out of them. And ultimately, it's a kind of just human nature that we will want to look at who's the most productive and who isn't most productive, and you will have to probably make some hard decisions. So make sure you have the visibility into who are your best people, so that if you do have to cut back, you're keeping the ones that keeping the keepers. Right. And so great visibility into employee performance, employee productivity will help you make the right decisions, but also it can help you guide employees to be more effective, provide more value, affect the bottom line more effectively, and then they'll be obviously easier to keep them on board. But it's it's a tough part of this whole situation in both, and it's a change in mentality also. I mean, just in terms of changing the mentality from we're hiring with our hair on fire,
right?
And people kind of have this expectation, oh well, there's going to be someone coming along that can do that. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, nobody's coming along. you have to do it. So it's, doing more with less or with the same is a discipline that sometimes companies are not very used to. And you got to reframe it as not a negative, but a positive.
Yeah.
We're not hiring, but we have an opportunity now to really buckle down and learn how to do everything we do better and more efficiently. And that's going to pay off in the long run when we do. So trying to, really frame it as a positive, even though there's a lot of negativity around is I think an important part of keeping employees motivated and keeping them, productive and contributing.
Well, and one other, not to insert my own, thought here. I just happened to talk to Aaron Hartwig from Edgewood, one of our NetSuite planning and budgeting customers, who talked about, they're forecasting every week. And in doing so, they're able to figure out which levers they need to pull or what they need to turn off or how they need to scale up or scale down in order to, and part of that is in order to retain talent and make sure that they don't have to cut back or what have you. But
absolutely. You want to be, it takes so long to develop your employees to the level where they're as effective as they can be.
Right.
It takes years in many cases. That's a huge investment that you obviously want to be very reticent to give up on. I think that makes total sense. No one knows what's going to happen. Anyone that claims they know what's going to happen over the coming months, quarters, years, is probably making it up. So it's a very unusual time. There hasn't really been a precedent. And so I think that notion of planning, of, shortening your planning cycles makes a lot of sense. Because from quarter to quarter, again, I don't think anybody knows exactly what this particular iteration of economic uncertainty is going to result in.
Agreed. Well, that's it. There's one Bruce commented, and I think this Bruce is an Evan fan because you will get this. Some others may get this.
Way back in the day.
Bruce says, is Evan aware that they're making a feature version of Breaking Bad? So clearly Bruce has seen has seen that skit, and I appreciate, again, another deep cut. I appreciate it, Bruce.
We'll have to spin up, the sets and shave my head and all that whole thing.
Have to do it all over again.
I mean, maybe this time it'll be again, no one knows what we're talking about, but at Sweet World many years ago, we did a video called Breaking Good, where I played Walter White. But maybe we'll do a takeoff on Better Call Saul next time.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Well, with that, Evan, just thank you so much for joining us. This was super informative. Just, again, pulling from your own insight. I think everybody can relate to that. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to everybody else for tuning in. We appreciate you all shouting out to us and leaving your comments, asking questions. This is really great. We love the engagement. So if you want to actually dive deeper into ways that you can leverage NetSuite for greater efficiency within your business, we've actually left a link in the description that can help you quite a bit with that. Go a little bit deeper into what we talked about today and relate it back, of course, to your business. And then before we sign out here, if you don't already, make sure you give us a follow, a like, or a subscribe across any of our channels. We do these types of conversations at least once a month. So make sure you don't miss any of those by following us. And with that, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much for joining us.